Hello everyone, I will talk about my invention, method of authentication between electronic devices. It is a patent issued by United States government. The number is 124-70410. Okay, background. In an information transmission, the condition that a first electronic devices and a remote electronic devices may establish a secure channel are to authenticate an identity of information source and use information encryption to ascertain an identity of information receiver. A mechanism of public key infrastructure by a pre-shared mutually trusted third party verifies that the other party's public key. That method presupposes that a mutually trusted third party may be able to impersonate. For mitigating impersonation risk resulted from a pre-shared mutually trusted third party, there is a method of a direct identity authentication using cryptographic authenticated public key exchange. Using a cryptographic authentication code to proceed to an augmented cryptographic authenticated key exchange is a method of direct identity authentication. Traditionally, in technology of secure remote password, SRP, the technology of SRP support a direct identity authentication. Now, in addition, in another embodiment of my invention, the technology of SRP transmits a cryptographic authentication code offline. Using cryptographic authentication code to authenticate an identity, this is a method that is disclosed by myself. Using a cryptographic authentication code to authenticate an identity includes an advantage that a method that using a different that is to use a different cryptographic authentication code to authenticate a different identity. That is using a different cryptographic authentication code to authenticate a different identity. And that using an offline transmission of cryptographic authentication code to mitigate leakage of a cryptographic authentication code. We can use different authentication code to authenticate a different identity. And the offline transmission of authentication code mitigates the leakage of authentication code. Now, my patent has a two stage, registration stage and authentication stage. In the registration stage, A send B, W1, W1, B send A, W2. And there another part of my method is to make sure that V2 is a message authentication code of V1 using a cross-stage key H. And in the authentication stage, A send W1 prime to B, and B send W2 prime to A. And the second part is that to make sure that V2 is a message authentication code of V1 using a cross-stage code H. So, if you view it more in detail, there are two stages: registration stage, authentication stage, and there are two parts. First part is transmission of W1 and W2. The second part is to make sure that V1 is a message authentication code of V1. In similar way, in authentication code, in authentication stage, A send W1 prime to B, and B send W2 prime to A. This is the first part. The second part is to make sure that V2 is a message authentication code of V1 using a cross-stage key H. So what are variable? What are invariable? W1, W2, W1 prime, W2 prime are variable. What are invariable? V1, V2, H are invariable. Variable means variable across stage. That is, variable across registration stage and authentication stage. Invariable means static, fixed across stage. First authentication code V1, second authentication code V2, cross-stage key H are invariable, fixed, static, across stage, that is, across registration stage and authentication stage. This is my patent essentially. So I will read to you the claim 1 of my patent. You can just open United States patent 12470-410. The number is 12470-410. And claim 1, a method of authentication between electronic devices. That is claim 1 of the patent in number 12470-410. The claim 1 reads, a method of authentication between electronic devices applicable in a first electronic devices, a remote electronic devices, and a mutual dynamic authentication. The method comprising initiating by the first electronic devices, registration with the remote electronic devices for registering an identity belonging to the first electronic devices with the remote electronic devices by 2 steps. The first step, calculating a second cryptographic authentication code, V2. And the second step, securing first information, W1, and the second information, W2, from being tampered with by a middleman, wherein the first information, W1, is sent by the first electronic devices to the remote electronic devices, and the first information, W1, comprises a first public key, A1, and the second public key, A2, of the first electronic device, and wherein the second information, W2, is received from the remote electronic devices, and the second information, W2, comprises a first public key, B1, and a second public key, B2, of the remote electronic devices, wherein calculating a second cryptographic authentication code, V2. So I disclose here how to calculate V2. There are 2 steps. First step, calculating a cross-stage authentication code, secret key H, based on the second public key B2 of the remote electronic device. And the second step, calculating a message authentication code as the second cryptographic authentication code V2 by using the cross-stage authentication code secret key H as a message authentication code secret key, and a first cryptographic authentication code V1 as information to be authenticated. Now, I further disclose how to secure W1 and W2 from being tampered by a middleman. So, wherein securing first information W1 and the second information W2 from being tampered with by a middleman comprises the following steps. Receiving the second information, W2, wherein the second information, W2, comprises the first public key, B1, and the second public key, B2, of the remote electronic device. Then, another step, sending third information, W3, wherein the third information, W3, is sent by the first electronic device to the remote electronic device, and the third information, W3, comprises the first cryptographic authentication code, V1, of the first electronic device, and wherein the first cryptographic authentication code, V1, is a one-way function of a cross-stage secret key, U, of the first electronic device, receiving false information W4, wherein the false information W4 is received from the remote electronic device, and sending false information W5, where the false information W5 is sent by the first electronic device to the remote electronic device, and the false information W5 comprises the second cryptographic authentication code V2, wherein the remote device verifies that the cross-stage secret key U is in possession of the first electronic device when responding to the first electronic device and registering an identity belonging to the remote electronic device with the first electronic device, and that the cross-stage secret key U is in the possession of the first electronic device when mutual authentication is performed between the first electronic device and the remote electronic device, wherein a one-way function of a cross-stage secret key Y that is calculated by using the second public key A2 of the first electronic device serves as the second public key B2 of the remote electronic device, wherein A2 is equal to S to the R's power. A2 is the second public key A2 of the first electronic device. X is an element password X, and R is a private key of the first electronic device, wherein T is equal to S to the Y's power. T is a secure sort T, and Y is the cross-stage secret key Y, and wherein the cross-stage secret key U of the first electronic device is calculated by the first electronic device based on the element password X, an identity I of the first electronic device, and the secure sort T. That is the claim 1 of United States patent number 124700410. Thank you. Bye-bye.